its weakness caused by malnutrition. The solution is to get some nutrition. Symptoms are dermatitis, diarrhea, mental symptoms, and death.
Hi everybody, this is a YouTube channel of Reiwa Medical Chatting. Today, we introduce the movie of Grave of the Fireflies. Have you ever watched this movie? This movie suggests the importance of essential child nutrients. Let's talk about Dr. Ono, please.
I'm Dr. Ono. Thank you for visiting us. Today, we'll talk about the tragedy of war and malnutrition as learned from Grave of the Fireflies. Look at the slide, please. 1. Malnutrition is accompanied by deficiencies in various trace elements and vitamins. 2. Trace elements and vitamins are essential for survival. 3. Infants and other young children are the first to suffer from starvation. 4. War, poor harvests, impoverished countries, and disparities within developed countries are the cause of the starvation. 5. Even developed countries tend to be short of various trace elements and vitamins. 6. Food over weapons, peace over war. Look at the next slide, please. Children and adults, poverty, disease, social inequality, war causes malnutrition. And today's young people, lack of money, eating only ramen and greasy meat, and without enough fruit or vegetables, which causes vitamin deficiency. Look at the slide, please. This is a scene from a movie. The aunt said, even in times of emergency, such as war, where there's money and power, there's everything. You can see the foods brought by her nephew. Here is another scene from the movie where the aunt is serving rice porridge with sweet potatoes and some seaweed. And she is feeding her own children lots of rice and sweet potatoes. In this scene, her son says the military is adamant that production should be increased in preparation for the battle on the mainland, and that special suicide attack units and bamboo spear units should be increased for the sake of the country and the emperor. Here is the next slide. In Japan, this was a normal way children were treated when evacuated during wartime. In any country, children starve when war breaks out for business or other reasons. The niece is eating porridge with just soup, without ingredients. Look at this, rice porridge with no ingredients. Whose share is it for? For her nephew and niece. Rice porridge without ingredients is given. The aunt said to her nephew, that's what the Japanese military always does. Food rations are always getting worse and smaller, as an excuse for not giving her nephew and niece enough food. And this is the next slide. The aunt says, you are going to get stronger and join in the army, right? She says, in every country, young people without any education or qualification are usually enlisted in the army and sent to the front line. But there are also countries that use young people from friendly or allied countries as soldiers rather than their own. When the niece wanted to eat rice bowl and not porridge without ingredients, the aunt said, wow, what an extravagant and selfish thing you say. Then the niece said, but that's our rice, because the rice is brought by her nephew, not her rice. 4-year-old children knows everything. Of course, the aunt got very angry as the niece told truth. Some other day, the aunt said, what a real nuisance has come into our house. Young Japanese should die for our Majesty the Emperor. If you are coward and value your life so much, why don't you just live in a cave in an air-raid shelter? Well, these are the aunt's plans. The food that the nephew and the niece brought with them is running out. If they stay, the family will starve. If I bury them to the point that they make them leave the house of their own accord, everything will be fine. Everything would be okay. It's not uncommon all over the world for people to bury someone in order to drive out wives or sons or other relatives they dislike. In reality, the niece did not die because the nephew left home. It was a result of the aunt cleverly manipulating the nephew and niece to live out of their own accord. It is difficult for children to see that far, and even if they did, there's nothing they can do. Even if they stayed at the aunt's house, the two would likely starve eventually. After those days, the girls sighed. I don't want to live with my aunt anymore. The brother left his aunt's house to fulfill his sister's wish. However, it was a hard day. Due to the limited food rations provided by the government, not only children, but also many adults have starved to death. Think about it. What happens when a resource-poor country begins war? Food shortages cause many adults to death, and much more children die. The children have eaten dried frogs. However, it was too little, not enough. Also, they were having crushed soybeans porridge that were too hard to digest for young children. And in any countries, starving children steal vegetables. The farmers hit and kick children. In Japan, at that time, hitting children was considered good discipline both at school and at home. In the military, new recruits were routinely bullied and beaten for no reason, as my father has told. My father has been in China as a soldier and hit and kicked so many times without any reason. These were the reasons why Japanese soldiers were so cruel. But who was to blame for starving children? It was the adults, the emperor, and the military who started a war of aggression. However, soon after, the girl said to her brother, "You know, my stomach feels strange. I keep having diarrhea." You can see fine-toothed combs which have been used to remove lice those days, but it did not remove all of them. Finally, the brother brought his sister to a clinic. The doctor says, "Take a breath. This skin shows intractable red rashes. They are sometimes caused by scabies and other diseases." The brother says, "It doesn't seem to be just ordinary heat rash, and she has been having diarrhea for days. Now that hasn't stopped." The doctor says calmly, "It's weakness caused by malnutrition." Well, the solution is to get some nutrition. That's all there is to it. But the boy shouted with anger, "Where on earth the nourishment?" The boy's family was wealthy and had plenty of savings. However, Japan was short of food because of a war started by adults. Those are clinical symptoms and diagnostics of the girl from Grave of the Fireflies. Symptoms thought to be caused by malnutrition, chronic diarrhea, chronic skin lesions, eczema, elimination, and weight loss. The diagnosis is probably malnutrition and pellagra, maybe with scabies. What is pellagra? It is vitamin B3 deficiency. This is so-called niacin, nicotinamide. It is a coenzyme for over 500 types of enzymes: energy production, carbohydrate, lipid, and protein metabolism, and biosynthesis of fatty acids and steroid hormones, DNA repair and synthesis, and alcohol metabolism. It is found in seafood, meat, mushrooms, and whole grains, also synthesized from tryptophan. Maize and white rice contain little niacin, so regular consumption can lead to niacin deficiency. Soybeans contain niacin. However, it is poorly digested and absorbed when eaten as it is. Niacin deficiency is caused by starvation, alcoholism, and etc. Symptoms are dermatitis, diarrhea, mental symptoms, and death if it left untreated. MNS supplements like niacin are converted to NAD+ in the body, as he is using it in his clinic. Diet of the girl from Grave of the Fireflies are white rice and pond snails and frogs. Intake decreases over time. Soybean porridge. It is difficult to digest and difficult to use as nutrient. Stolen tomatoes and vegetables are insufficient. No meat, fish, mushrooms, or whole grains are consumed, which causes niacin deficiency. Malnutrition worsens over time. Lack of niacin leads to pellagra, and pellagra has diarrhea, further reduces nutrient absorption, and it caused weight loss and weakness and finally death. Nutrition disorders are common during war. The younger a child is, the smaller their nutrient reserves are and the faster their metabolism. They fall into malnutrition more quickly than adults, which cause mass deaths of infants and younger children. There is a fantasy of someone who has never experienced war. They say if she had stayed at her aunt's house, she wouldn't have died. She died because her brother left their aunt's house. However, writer Akiyuki Nosaka lost his father and sister to malnutrition and war, and he said, "I survived by eating and stealing my sister's food. Many people died at that time. I wanted to starve to death for my sister who couldn't be saved. I wrote this work because of that guilt." So this story is not about finding a way to survive. It is a story of a brother who wanted to die with his dying sister. Reality: when war breaks out, many children die even if they live with their families. Actually, the author was with his family, but his father and sister died. The author's thought: rather than starving to death while being buried, I wanted to leave home so that my sister wouldn't be buried and starved to death. And the sister didn't die because the brother left home. When war breaks out, children die. The brother's sorrow, wanting to die with her at least, is the essence of this work. Even now, children are dying in large numbers due to poverty, poor harvests, wars, and conflicts in poor countries. The death of the girl alluded to by Grave of the Fireflies are expressed in the dinner scene. Harassment and sarcasm by the aunt. Rice bowls where these guys are brazen and shameless. You are saying I'm cheating? Then I'll give you a separate meal. When the food her nephew brought with him was running low, she bullied him into leaving the house. This kind of thing was common among children who were evacuated from the city to live with relatives. As a result, many children were buried and died of malnutrition. Even if children have lived with their biological parents, their fathers and older brothers were not around because they were drafted by the government to the war. Even if they tried to grow food in gardens or fields, there were no male workers. Their income dropped drastically as their main source of income was taken away. They lived along with their mother and young children and suffered from chronic malnutrition. Even among siblings, the physically stronger or older children usually steal food from the younger ones. The children who stayed at home also died in large numbers, starting with the youngest. The children who were left in the care of relatives were even more likely to die. It was not Seita's fault that he and his sister died. The root cause was that war criminals started a war of aggression. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for the comment on this movie. How do you think about this presentation? Dr. Ono, what should be given to children with anorexia?
Well, take sugar from isotonic drinks or juice little by little, and take salt from miso soup or consomme soup. Salt keeps the water in the body, which prevents dehydration, and glucose keeps their energy intake well. And however, if they wouldn't recover, please see a pediatrician.
Thank you so much. Please subscribe.
Thank you for joining us. See you.